Morning, folks. Councilman Rasmussen here, coming to you with my update from our town council meeting last night, April 15th, 2024. Start off with the general update stuff, all the stuff in the town tidbits, if you're not getting that still. So a couple of big things coming up. On May 6th is the last day we'll be having our property tax assessment appeals. If you have done any work to your house this year, like you put on a new deck or finished a basement or something like that, in my case, we replaced our water heater system, and you had to pull a permit. You probably got a letter last week or a week before stating that your assessment may have changed. Most of the properties that get assessment letters are actually new builds, where it went from a vacant lot to a new home. But folks like me, I got one this year because we did some improvements on our house this year, and it's changed our assessed value from the town's assessed value, not the county. They're two totally different things. You can, if you would like to appeal that, you have to let the town know, and then there's an appeals process where you come in. I'll actually be part of that board. It is 6 p.m. on the 6th. At Town Hall. Anyone who doesn't like their new assessed value can come in and make a case for why they feel it might be incorrect. So that'll be on the 6th, and then we'll finally approve those. Today is our Arbor Day celebration, 5:30 p.m. down at Market Street Plaza in front of Town Hall. There'll be the Arbor Day celebration in honor of Yvette Cooper Sullivan. So if you knew Yvette or you know Yvette, come on down, check that out this evening for Arbor Day. Councilwoman Forbes is running that event. Certainly coming up very quickly here, town council elections are going to be on April 30th, 2024. They run all day, so 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. at Town Hall. If you are a resident of the town of Smyrna, you can vote. It does not mean you have to be a property owner. I've been asked this question: can folks who are renters come and vote? And that is absolutely true. You just have to make sure that you can prove that you live here in the town of Smyrna. For a lot of folks have already seen this, because I've seen lots of stuff out on the street. Spring cleanup has started. This is the 2 weeks every year in the spring where our town public works staff go around and they pick up all of the things that don't fit in your normal garbage, as long as it is not hazardous waste or construction debris, like you demolished a wall or a building. You can put it out. They will come along in the trucks. It's not an everyday thing. They are rolling through the entire town trying to grab everything. So the trucks will be coming around, picking up and loading as much of that stuff. It's an annual spring cleanup that we do. So if you've got stuff that you can't get in your normal garbage and you've got no way to get it up to the transfer station yourself, this is your chance to get it taken care of. So that goes through the end of the month, through the 26th. So you've got basically 2 weeks in order to make it all happen for the annual spring cleanup there. Certainly, if you haven't looked yet on our calendar events in the town tidbits, there's doing a great job. The Parks and Rec Committee, Councilwoman Gott, of putting up lots and lots of the events and things that are going on in town. So please make sure you check that out, because there are lots of other little things that are, certainly can't mention everything going on. So that's the town tidbits. As far as last night's board meeting, actually not many agenda items. The meeting itself ended up being fairly quick, but it did start off. So we had a public hearing regarding one of the items, specifically the second half of our comprehensive rezoning. That was the chief menu, or the chief item on our agenda last night. So the comprehensive rezoning is something that has been in the works for Smyrna for close to 20 years. We are required to update our comprehensive plan every 10 years, and as part of that, we are required to update the zoning based on the approved comprehensive plan. It's a big process. It took years to go through the comprehensive plan update. It involves many public meetings. It involves approvals and feedback from the state back and forth between them in order to get a functional comprehensive plan. So as part of that, we then have to update our zoning to meet the new requirements of that comprehensive plan. We did the first half of this, which was mostly the downtown properties, last month. This was the second half of it, which was mostly the highway commercial properties out on Route 13, as well as the rezoning for the future residential development properties to the north side of town. Folks came out and spoke about this. I'm actually going to probably do a couple of separate videos, maybe later on today, addressing some of the major questions that have come up around the whole budget conversation and the new tax rate, because they are very relevant to some of this conversation last night, which is why are we allowing new development, and who has to pay for that new development. I'm going to do another video that's specifically about that, because I think there's a lot of questions and misconceptions about what that is and why that's happening. I know we've also heard a lot of questions about the utilities and kind of how does that work. So I'm probably going to post a couple of separate videos that kind of individually address those items, rather than do like one half an hour long video or hour long video talking about it. But so as far as the rezoning last night, this is a process, like, council has voted to approve this now, I'm going to say at least 4 times. This is the final step in that process of approving the comprehensive plan and then approving the rezoning. It is gone back and forth. We certainly, we got some public feedback from it last night. The concerns that have been echoed that in many cases are out of the hands of the town at this point because of a variety of legal reasons. There were a couple of folks who raised things. We did make one small change at a specific request from a specific property owner on a piece of property. But aside from that, it is almost a formality that we needed to approve the zoning. Now, this is something that's been in the works for, like I said, close to 20 years. It should have been done, the majority of this should have been done at least 10 years ago, back in 2012 when we did our last comprehensive plan update. So we had that. We had a short discussion about creating a set of capital reserve accounts. So this goes into the budget conversation that we've been having. For a very long time, the town has not been setting aside resources, money from our water, sewer, and electric utilities to pay for water, sewer, and electric infrastructure. We have been using all of that money to pay the operating expenses of the town for far too long, and it has been a big piece of what has created the budget issues that we've had this year. And a big reason why we made significant changes to the tax rate so that we start paying operating expenses with operating funds, and we can then begin to plan for and pay capital expenses with capital funds. But in order to do that, we need to create a couple of specific reserve accounts for our water, for our sewer, and for our electric. More of a formality because we need these accounts in order to be able to start setting aside money. They have to be formally created by town council to be able to do that. But think of it basically, these are savings accounts for the water, sewer, and electric systems, so that eventually when we get enough money in there, we don't have to rely on loans. We don't have to go out for other things. If there's a line failure or something like that, we have the resources in place in order to meet the capital needs of our community. We have not done this. These accounts have never existed. It's not like we've had them and we've just not put money in them. They've actually never even existed in our code. So it says to me that we've never really been planning ahead for the future infrastructure needs of this community, and we need to change that. And this is a piece of that process. So we voted to create those code amendment or those capital reserve accounts last night. And then the couple of housekeeping things that we also discussed. One was appointing the appeals committee. Myself, Councilwoman Forbes, and Councilwoman Upshur will serve on the appeals committee. If you're filing an appeal based on your town assessment, not your county assessment, has nothing to do with the county assessment. And also appointing a new member to the Shade Tree Commission. So relatively small number of agenda items, relatively quick meeting from that standpoint at least. We did have a lot of public feedback. I actually couldn't attend in person because my children were home sick yesterday, and my wife was out of town for she's out of town this week for work, so I was at the meeting via Zoom, so I didn't get to see a lot of folks, but there were a lot of people who attended. A lot of questions about the tax rates, a lot of comments like that. Thus why I'm going to try and do some other videos to try and address some of these. I've spoken with probably 30 or 40 people in the last week or so, trying to address questions, trying to provide a little bit of background and information. It's nice to hear from people. It's nice to have those questions. When they're civil, we've been accused of all sorts of interesting things as council members. My favorite was that somehow I managed to get paid $80,000 a year to do this work. I'm pretty sure my W-2 must have been wrong because I think it said it was like $1,100, which I did the math and it worked out to be about $3 an hour is what council people get paid for this job, not some $81,000 a year that, according to Facebook, is what we make. Quite humorous. So I'm going to do a couple more videos specifically addressing some of those budget things, not necessarily relevant to the updates from the council meeting last night. As always, get on the Town Tidbits if you're not there. Make sure other people are there for it. That's where you're going to find out a lot of information about upcoming meetings and events and stuff like that. And take a look later on today, hopefully, for some additional videos if you want to learn a little bit more about some of the development pieces, some of the utility pieces, the things that really impact, I think, the way that the town operates and needs to operate. So, thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful Tuesday, and you'll hear from me again soon.